Upon grace.
I'm doing well. So good to be here this afternoon. I actually was doing some fathering stuff on my way
All
here.
right, tell us about it. Tell us about it.
Oh no, I just dropped off a washing machine.
Okay.
And so my daughter has given her brother, who's recently got married,
Hey now.
her washing machine. So Dad had to transport it and take it through, and then I thought, well, I'll just come into the studio and meet with you live. Yeah,
Doing daddy stuff.
Doing daddy stuff,
I love
yeah.
that. And I mean, you've got older kids, right?
yeah. So I've got 3 adult children.
Okay.
And then I've got 1 grandchild, and there's another one coming in a month's time.
Wow, congratulations.
And just an interesting, you were talking about Father's Day. So I have just celebrated my 33rd Father's Day, but my daughter is only 32.
Okay,
So work that one out.
I'm sure your wife had said Happy Father's Day when she was pregnant.
No.
I had to take a try.
My mother-in-law said, I'm a real father. I'm like, why? Because my daughter was born on Father's Day.
No ways.
So she was born on Father's Day. So that's why even though it was the 16th and her birthday was only on Friday the 21st, so I had a father's that was my 33rd, and she wasn't even 32 yet.
Tick.
So yeah, so that's
who celebrated who? And there was also Youth Day. It was chaotic.
it's happened a number of years now that her birthday falls on Father's Day.
Wow.
So it's the 3rd Sunday in June.
So what do you guys get up to? Is it like an exclusive thing where it's like, okay.
Oh no, when
we're
it's her
focusing
birthday, when she was still living at home before she got married, Father's Day, we both got breakfast in bed. I have a picture of that with the two of us because it was her birthday and it was Father's Day. And I always say she was my first Father's Day gift. So, yeah, very special.
Oh, I Sana
yeah.
Jonga. Utanelda made sure.
Yeah.
That, she's number one there. She's number one.
It's Anya. Danelda's my wife. Anya.
Anya is
my
your
daughter. That's right.
Danelda is your wife.
That's correct.
Okay, all right, okay.
Yeah.
Welcome every single person that is tuned in. That is Mr. Van Graan's voice that you are hearing right now. And we are live on Facebook and we are live on YouTube. We want to get straight into the conversation. Listen, your biography, Puti, is quite long. Do you want to give us like a rough introduction of who you are? Because Joga, from being a teacher, from a community leader, but I mean the highlight now is you having to be a community mobilizer and trainer for the Heartlines.
Yeah.
I think that's the one that stands out the most.
Yeah.
Here.
So I think, with you, this year I'm becoming a sexagenarian. You know what that is?
Okay, tell me more.
I'm turning 60. I don't look it, but I am the OG.
The OG.
Now, so before I give the answer on that, let me tell you how the OG came about, and it's got to do with fatherhood.
Okay.
So my son's a fashion model. You can see if you on Facebook.
Yeah, the features are there. The features.
And he's an international fashion model. He's in Singapore at the moment, going back to Dubai. So. My little grandson was born, and he was quite cute at 1 year old. And they thought, okay, let's try and see if we can't get him into doing some child modeling. And one of the photos that they sent in was a photo of me holding him, and we're making like cheeky faces. And then my daughter got an email, and then they contacted her and said, we are also interested in the older gentleman. So the OG is not for original gangster, but for the older gentleman. And so then I they said, well, you can do this whenever you feel like it. So I went to the agency and said, fine, I'll do that. But it was obviously funny because they all knew that I was my son Nicholas. I was his dad. So it was quite fun. So I've only done one local thing, but the other stuff has been more international photo stuff.
Guys, I'm rolling with international.
I did a sneaker factory one, which was quite interesting because they were looking for a lekker uncle.
Is that the one with all your other, like the other children? They're all wearing
Yeah,
like the
all wearing
sneakers.
the
I
the
saw that.
sneakers.
I
Yeah,
kind of picked at your
yeah. So
at
I
your
did some
social
of that,
page.
and yeah, so it was quite interesting and quite fun.
That's
Just
so
having,
cool.
actually, just sitting and chatting with young people, finding out about their lives, and just they couldn't believe that I'm a pastor. They're like, really?
Sure.
I said, why? What is your picture of a pastor? And then as we, be able to talk about faith and about, so what do you think about Jesus and church and all of that kind of stuff?
Sure.
And just me listening to them, you
Yeah.
know. And I think the church can do a lot to try and reach a generation that's kind of, the authenticity of what church should be, I think, has been lost to them.
And come as you are, because you didn't bring them like that formality,
Yeah.
of I'm a pastor, so da 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 da.
Yeah.
You were there.
Yeah.
It's like the same. You are in the same category, but now it changes when the conversation starts. Like,
Yeah.
okay, tell
I
me
was
more.
a lekker uncle.
Hey,
Because that's what they were looking for. They were looking for someone that had that kind of feel. And I think I am a lekker uncle. I'm a kind of,
they is die.
yeah, I was
The
involved
earthly guy.
in youth ministry. So I worked for Youth for Christ for about 10 years in South Africa. That was great fun.
Sure.
I joined Youth for Christ in 1992. And it was just before, the democratic South Africa. It was a very white organization.
Yeah.
10 years later, I left. It was like 90% black, reaching the demographic.
Sure.
We went to leadership school every day, learning how to do this transformation thing, but also seeing the great need to reach our young people.
Sure.
And so talking about fathering,
Yeah.
it's because of many years and working with young people who struggled with fatherhood and still, struggle today. And
Sure.
we'll get into that soon.
Yeah, I think let's get straight into it. Like introductory of of your relationship with your dad. How was that growing up?
Yeah, so I mean, my dad was a very strong personality, and if I look at it, we were always being challenged. There were a lot more. There were positive things about knowing who you are.
Yeah.
Remember you're a Van Graan. You knew about your surname and what that meant, and that you come from good stock, and so you got to live up to the family name. And also, I mean, my dad was a sportsman, so in sports and everything you were expected to achieve.
Sure.
Even though both of my parents weren't well educated, the most important thing they wanted for us was to make sure we get an education. So yeah, we spent some challenging times in my teenage years with my dad, because my dad's father died when he was 6 years old. He had no fathering figure in his life. My mother was a matriarch. My grandmother was a matriarch. So learning about how to raise up young men, because I had two brothers then, and what that meant, and also just the lack of connection.
Sure.
My mom was a communicator, so we chatted about everything. Our mom spoke to me about girls and about sex and about everything.
Sure.
That's what she would talk about. My dad, the only time we talk about is probably sport
Yeah.
or things like that. But never finding out how I'm doing or what's going on, or always finding fault with the things that you're not doing well
Yeah.
in.
Where's that 2% out of that 98?
Yeah, so
Kind
that
of
was a
thing.
very,
Sure.
very challenging type of relationship. So in some ways it was complicated. In other ways, I learned about hard work. My dad worked incredibly hard. I learned about principles of this is right and that is wrong,
Yeah.
and standing up for what is right, and speaking up. He always challenged us to take your space in a room.
That's good.
Don't stand back. And it wasn't about violence. It was about speaking, and I remember,
Be visible.
yeah, I remember helping him. My dad was into horticulture. So he worked at a nurseries, and I went to go and help as a student, or rather and I remember a woman coming once and saying to the cashier, you can ask the boy to go and carry this. And my dad is 6'2". My dad is bigger than me. I'm 6'1". He was 6'2". And the other thing is that we spoke English, you know. And my dad was fairly dark, so my dad turned around and said to the lady, "Excuse me, which boy are you talking about? Are you talking about that one?" And he pointed to me, because that's my son.
Oh.
He's a boy. And I knew my dad was much older than this woman in any case. And remember, I'm probably about 13 years old, and seeing my dad stand up and just articulate and stand up and take his space.
Yeah.
And I looked at that and I thought, I like that about my dad, you know. Yet there were times when I felt he needed to be speaking up and saying certain things when he wasn't.
Yeah.
So it was, there were, you know, I miss him a lot now. I think it took him a while for him to realize that I was an adult. That's the other thing. You know, I had my own home and everything. He would come and tell me about my garden that needed to be fixed and this needs to be sorted out and that.
Man.
And I just look at him and think, my goodness, don't you know that I'm
grown up.
I'm a grown-up person. I mean, he wouldn't. I wanted to go and fetch him at hospital. He asked me because he had an operation on his knee, and I said, okay, fine, I'll come fetch you in your car. He said, no, you don't drive my car. You know, so I said, oh. So I said, what car must I come with? He said, no, come with your own car.
Okay.
I'll give you petrol money. And actually, my car was more expensive than his.
Ah.
You know, and I was just thinking, where's the mindset about all of those things?
But also, I think he just wanted you to drive your own car and also have that feel of you are actually driving your own car.
No, it wasn't that.
Not that.
To be honest, it was like, you don't touch my car. My dad didn't teach me to drive.
Did you at
You
least
know.
wash it?
His car.
Yeah.
Never touched it.
Really?
I can't remember washing his car once.
Hectic. Because I know with boys, it's always like, can I wash your car? And then they'll, play with the starter and then
Yeah, so
yeah.
that's why I didn't have my own car until I was like 23 or even was interested in driving. I had friends who drove because my dad didn't. I could never wanted to go and ask him, Dad, do you want to teach me to drive? It's like it wasn't going to be something, you know. So you also learned how to survive on your own.
Yeah, sure. We are going to go straight into a deeper conversation. We've got May Pito Sampson saying proud daddy to Mr. Wesley. And we have Uma Muzomzi all the way from Saturime saying, hi, Musa, I'm tuning in. So thank you so much for every single person that is tuning in. We will take a short break and we will be right back.
Christmas comes early this year and it's all happening at the Tilbach Christmas in Winter from 28 to 30 June 2024. Tilbach welcomes you for a weekend extravaganza filled with wonderful winter warmers. Come feast your eyes on a dazzling Farmers Electric Light Parade, live entertainment, winter warming food, offering more than just sermons and testimonies. We explore the Word together, discuss current affairs, and focus on strengthening families. Tune in now across the Western Cape on 729 AM. That's AM or MW, not FM. Alternatively, visit our website or download our app to listen wherever you are. Cape Pulpit 729 AM, your daily companion.
There is radio and radio. And then there is Radio Cape Pulpit on 729 AM. Can you hear the difference?
Aibo, of course you can hear the difference. Of course you can hear the difference. It is 729 Cape Pulpit, and that is where it is at. You are still tuned in to Grace Upon Grace, and my name is Musa Jakuja, and I'm not rolling alone. I am with Mr. Wesley Van Graan, who is taking us into his journey of fatherhood, how he's transitioning from telling us his story, how he grew up, how he was raised by his dad, and now just asking a question like, how does the two work for you? How you grew up versus how you are raising your children right now?
Yeah, and I think the benefit is actually partly education, that you've actually learnt and read, and there's been a lot more, preparedness that I had.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things of my dad that I've kept on doing, and there's other stuff that I haven't, that I've decided, no, I'm not going to father in that particular way. So I think part of it is I wanted to be present with my children. I wanted to go and be involved in their lives. I asked how they're doing and what's going on in their lives.
Yeah.
To a point that they actually sometimes would say, that, Dad, you want to know like kind of everything, which is more what the mom wants to get involved with. So I think that, and for all their big days, their events, to make sure, I think one of the challenges that I had I played rugby, and my dad, he came to watch me play like 3 times, and I played like up to provincial level almost, just in the old days, and I always said to myself, I'm going to go to all my kids' games if they ever play. I'll make sure if I'm not in the town or at home and I'm away, that's fine. But if I'm there,
I'll make sure.
And they got me to take them to the bus because they didn't want to travel with me to matches. They wanted to go with a school bus.
Of course, that's the vibe.
So you have to go at 6 o'clock in the morning, take them to school, and then I go home, I go and have a lie-in, and then I drive to Worcester or drive to Hermanus or wherever they were playing and get in time for their matches.
Wow.
And so it was those kind of things, that for me was important. And then also just making sure that they can ask me, even when they're in trouble, that they phone me, that they feel safe enough to know my dad loves me enough. He's going to discipline me, but I'm never too scared. I would never phone my dad if I was in trouble.
Yeah.
I'll
call your mom.
I'll phone my older cousins. They would help me. But my boys and my daughter, I would say to them, hey, if you're ever in trouble and you ever need help, you give me a call and I'll be there.
Sure.
We'll deal with the consequences later. But, if you don't call me, I'm going to be more angry than anything else.
Because you're building trust as well there, I guess, because it's much better if it comes from a person that they interact with every single day.
Yeah.
Unlike coming from another person and you are so much in need of this one person that knows me. I wish it could come from them. So I like that bridge that you built there. And of course, talking about how you just, combined those things together and they work for you. I'm sure with them, it's going to be something different, like generations happen, right?
Yeah.
There's been a father wound. Let's talk about the father wound. Any experiences when it comes to, dealing with a wound?
Yeah, and I think all men may have had some form of wounding. And how you actually acknowledge it and deal with it is, and that's the problem with men, is that men don't talk about it. And sometimes they bury it deep inside of them. And so it gets played out in all different sorts of ways. But women are so in tune with their emotions, and their emotion intelligence is just so high that we actually need to train men about emotional intelligence.
Sure.
And part of my role as a dad was to help my boys to know that it's okay
Yeah.
to be emotional, to cry, to talk about your weakness, to say I'm struggling. It must be okay. Because I would, when they were younger, and we'd even have times of prayer around as a family, and we'd be praying for needs, I would tell them what the needs are.
Sure.
I wouldn't just say I don't have money. I would say, guys, we need to do this and this and this.
Yeah.
We need to now pray that God would provide, you know, so that we can actually do that for you. So you wanting to, the Bible says we need to train up our children.
Yeah.
And often dads never used to train their children. They were in church on Sunday, they were preaching even, they were all involved. But they wouldn't. My first priority in discipleship is to disciple my own children.
Come on.
Before I'm a pastor,
Yeah.
you know, when I used to do things with my kids and people asked me to do something and it was in my diary, I would say, sorry, I've got another appointment.
I love that.
I wouldn't tell them that I'm doing something with my children because people's mindset, oh, you're the pastor, that's only your children. I need you more than they do.
They don't
And actually,
understand.
no, because whether if I was a pastor or not, it was so important that I was there for them. I remember a situation at my son's school where his teacher reprimanded him and he came to tell me. And he said, and my teacher said, I'm a pastor's son, I'm supposed to behave better.
Wow.
So I heard what he had done wrong, and that's fine. So I went to the teacher and I acknowledged that. And then I laid into the teacher and I said, you don't ever. You know, and I was pretty firm. I said, you don't ever tell my child that he needs to behave better than any other child. He's a child.
Sure.
I'm his father. Just because I'm a pastor doesn't mean that he must now, you know, have like this. He's a sinner, you know, just like anyone
us.
else.
Sure. Sure.
So, and I think me going to speak to his teacher about it, and actually the other day we were chatting about it because he was at the conference. He was a keyboard player,
Oh yeah.
and we were at the conference, and he said, Dad, I forgot again about that situation. Did you really go and speak to the teacher? I said, yeah. I said, because I needed to protect you from having a negative image of church and
Yo.
of me and my role that I play in leading people and as a Christian leader. So it was those things that I needed to communicate. And for my daughter, the girl child,
Hey.
my dad never had any daughters. So my dad's name was Jacob, and he had 5 sons. So Jacob
Okay.
has sons.
Was it not in the Bible?
And so when I had a daughter, I also thought, I've got to treat her in a way that any other man that she encounters in the future,
Yeah.
she should compare it and look at the way that I have raised her. And
That's a high bar.
it's a high bar because I needed to protect her, but I also needed to inform her. And I told her the truth about boys,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
You know, and when I was a teenager, and this is how I used to think, and I had to change, and Jesus helped me to think differently. But I think those things of raising girl child and boys, and they're different.
Yeah.
Even with, so you asked me how different is my parenting, is I never treated my kids all the same. You know, because for us, when we grew up, there was one size fits all. You know, someone does something wrong,
Yeah.
everybody gets a
Everybody
hiding.
gets hide.
And it was like, no, this child is like that. I need to understand them. My other child is like this. I need to understand them. I always use an example and say to fathers when I do Fathersmatter workshops and say, how do you know your children love them, love you? And the majority of answers is they obey you. And I say that's the wrong answer.
Sure.
I said, because your child obeys you because either they're fearful of you
Yeah.
and because they're under. So how do you know your child loves you? You know, and yes, it could be the hugs. For me, it's when my children connect with me on the same things that we have in common.
Yeah.
So my son
Sure.
Nick will phone me, or he sent me messages this morning about what did I think of the rugby on Saturday. You know, because he's at a different time zone. Otherwise, if he's in the similar time zone, we chatting on WhatsApp while the game's going on. So we connect in sport, but
Yeah.
and also I need to be with him one-on-one and have conversations with him about what's going on in his life. My youngest son is a neo-soul jazz musician, so music is our connection.
Is
I'm a
his thing.
musician as well. So we'll talk about music, and he'll let me listen to Snarky Puppy or, some of Tom Misch and some of the other guys that most other fathers my age will never be listening to. My dad never listened to my music, And then for my daughter, she's a lawyer. She's been one since she was 3 years old, as I say.
I love that.
So debating and
Always try to get away.
yeah, but more about being, talking about issues and wanting to understand things. And so we both enjoy the whole thing of don't just give me an easy answer.
Yeah.
I want to
in
go
it.
deeper and understand it. So philosophy or even theology and stuff like that, and talking through issues. So how do you know your children love you? Is that they connect with you because they know my dad loves this and I love it, so let's connect.
Sure.
So fathering, discipline is the other area that I was very different in my dad. For different types of discipline works on different kinds of children.
Yes.
You need to understand your child, and you need to know that, this needs this kind of discipline, but that doesn't work on the other child.
Yes.
And so it's about understanding discipline is to help them to themselves to change behavior, whereas they wanted to beat the behavior out of us,
Sure. I love that. You just taken me straight into understanding. You talked about Fathersmatter conferences that you run in training. I know plus minus there's like a 70% of absent fathers in homes, right now. And how do we then bridge the gap? Is there a workshop that is coming? Is there, a particular place where, a father might be listening right now, an uncle might be listening that would love to join in and, volunteer, want to be part and parcel in helping society to, decrease this number because it's quite ridiculous.
Yeah. So let me just talk a bit about Fathersmatter. So it's part of a program that is run by an organization called Heartlines. So I work for Heartlines. Heartlines is a values promotion organization. And when we did some research, so we've done a number of things on values and money. We've done What's Your Story? And we did some research on the issues of fatherlessness and issues with children. And normally we do research and then we develop a program that will help to meet the need of that research. 70% of children grow up without a biological father in their home. Besides that, there's 30% who do have a father in their home, but he's not active and present. And so we said, how do we actually help that? First of all, we need to get men to start to talk about fathering.
Yeah.
Because, two men will talk about their sons and they'll complain. May like to, oh, Macy, and oh, my son, ay. And the other one, my son, we must hear about this. They don't come up with solutions.
Sure.
They don't say, how are you handling it? What did you do? I'm struggling with this. I don't know how to handle it. Because men are quite proud, They're supposed to be able to know their thing. Whereas a woman, they're sitting and talking with their friends all the time about what must I do with my daughter and what must I do with my son, and they're doing this. So we've developed Fathersmatter to address a number of things.
Yeah.
We've got 6 films, which was shown on television, and with it films comes discussion guides that churches can use, football clubs can use, sports clubs. We've used it in different places.
Yeah.
That helps the conversation. It deals with some of the key themes of fatherlessness. It deals with abandonment. It deals with a father's over expectations on their children, about an absent father trying to be present in his child's life, but they live far apart.
Sure.
And then we do the workshop, and the workshop is also starting to open up and getting men to talk about it.
Yeah.
We deal with 8 themes. We have discussion groups gathering, and we normally do it for about 3 hours on a Saturday morning. Then after the Fathersmatter conference, we've got now about 7 to 8 hubs in the different parts of Cape Town. So there's hubs in the south, in the northern.
I'm part of the North. Hey,
Yeah.
I'm not a father, but I am part. I want
because
to be part of the solution.
Fathersmatter is not just a man thing.
Yeah.
So in our workshops, women are free to come and speak because they've had fathers too.
Yes.
Or they have children who have fathers. And so how can they help
Yeah.
to repair some of the issues? So we do that on the 13th at Blackheath Baptist Church
Yes.
at 9 o'clock in the morning. We'll be having one of those. I'll try and get some of the other dates through to you, and then you can promote that with us.
Yes.
We're having one on the 20th. There's two happening on the 20th. So we've got about 3 staff that work here in Cape Town. But the Fathersmatter is aimed at 3 kinds of fathers. It's aimed at actually 4. It's aimed at a father who's just got a child. You've never been to fathering school. None of
Yeah.
us have. So this is an opportunity to learn about fathering. Number 2, it's aimed at a father who may have children, teenagers even, in their home, and they're trying to manage
Navigate
that.
life.
It's aimed at fathers whose children may be adults, but they messed up in their fathering.
Yeah.
And so we want to help them to say, okay, how can you be reconciled to your child? What role can you play now? It's going to be difficult, but it doesn't mean to say you've given up. And then we also deal with the issue of social fathers.
Okay.
If 70% of children are growing up without a biological father, there are other men who can be present and active in their lives who may not be their biological father. It happens naturally in our
Yeah.
country. We have stepfathers, we have grandfathers, we have uncles. We've given it a term now because I can see the role that social fathers even played in my life in the areas where my his skills were deficient. The areas that he didn't talk to me about, that I could go and talk to an uncle or an older brother kind
Yeah.
of person who's like 10 years older than me and talk into his life. So social fathers is a real important way in which we can address this issue of fatherlessness as well.
Yeah.
To stand in the gap for those fathers who we may never ever reach.
Sure.
So we're trying to reach those fathers who are involved in the lives of their children. It may be even fathers who may not live with their children.
Yeah.
They may have had children in a previous relationship, and so they only see their children occasionally. How do they manage that? How do they make sure that they don't spoil this child when they're with them, and then the
Yeah.
weekend the mother has to take 3 days before they get him back into a routine,
Sure.
and to try and overcompensate. And then also for the father's wound. So many men, before you can really, you need to deal with your own wounds
Yeah.
to be an effective father. And so we do a specific workshop called Father's Wounds, which is different to the other one,
Yeah.
because it's an emotional thing, because it helps men to understand and grasp the different ways in which they could have been hurt. Then, what are the next steps for restoration for you?
Sure, that's good.
How do you go and make right? How do you apologize, or how do you forgive your own father? And what if your father's dead already?
Yeah.
What is the
What do you
process
do?
now? So if you don't deal with it, you're never going to be whole enough to be able to be a good father to your children.
Sure.
Or if you're a grandfather and you're still dealing with those things, you can actually find that healing and then play that role within your child's life.
Yeah.
So we're really wanting to see how more men can be equipped. And us as Christians, the church needs to be discipling men into being fathers.
Yeah.
Because often people will say this. They will say, I can't relate to God as a father because of my own biological father. So how do we teach them?
How do we teach?
We have to teach them about who the perfect father is. God is the father.
Yes.
So this is your biological father. You cannot equate him with God.
Yeah.
This is who God is. Slow to anger, abounding in love.
Oh,
Like all these qualities of who God is. And then it says, for us as a child of God, in John it says, if you love me, you will obey my commandments. Our obedience to God comes out of our love for him as our father.
Sure.
And so if we use that excuse that we can't love God, and I'm saying the word strongly that it's an excuse because of my own father, we need to change our mind and say, no, I cannot compare my own father to God.
Sure.
I really need to get into the word. I really need to get taught. I really need to understand who God the Father is. Because if I don't do that, I'm always going to be looking at my earthly father.
Sure.
And so we really need to disciple men, equip men, and Heartlines, the Fathersmatter, is a tool that churches can use. We're there to want to help the church and put resources and tools in the hands of
Yes.
pastors and leaders and say, here's a tool, use it in your church. We can do one workshop and we can walk away and you can take it further. And every year you can have a workshop. Every 6 months you can do the Fathersmatter films. You can do the Connect group that you can find on Heartlines Fathersmatter page or website. You just go on there, register, download, free of charge, mahala.
Mahala.
You
And
know?
everybody loves mahala
Yep.
stuff.
Yeah. And it's good quality mahala stuff.
Yes, definitely good quality. Sure. Mr. Van Graan, it was so good. But one last question before you take a bow. 3 men, might be putting you in the spot right now. 3 men that, have played a role in your life and you're like, sure, I need to highlight this man and really say thank you.
Yeah, I've actually learned to do that quite often.
That's good.
Because you want to tell them while they're alive and not while they're dead. I do think my dad played a big role, irrespective of some of the challenges we had, which I think most young men would have gone through. But I think raising me up in the ways of the Lord,
Yeah.
And not just being an example in church, and just going to church.
Yeah.
My parents got divorced when I was 17, and my dad went through a wobble because he felt so guilty about all of this. But many years later, he got restored, and he went into a charismatic church, which for me was like my dad's in a charismatic church. But the latter years were way better than the former years. And so, it was such a joy for me to see my dad enjoying God and worshiping. My dad was a worshiper, so and 2 weeks ago, actually this past week, I got stopped. I was eating at a place and a man walked over to me and said, "Are you Jacob's son?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he said, "Your dad was in our life group. What a wonderful man." And I'm like, wow, look at the
Isn't that
impact that he
amazing?
had
Sure.
on that person's life. So my dad, I think there's 3 youth leaders that were like 10 years older than me. A guy called Peter Talental who works with Operation Mobilisation now, and he lives in this area in Durbanville side.
We see you, Mr. Tarantal.
Yeah, we know you. And Keith Riddles, who was my youth leader as well, just a tremendous person, example, helped me in leadership. A guy called Rodney Thorne, who lives in New Zealand, and also just a champion for us as young men. And then a guy, Jonathan Crow, who was also one. So 4 youth leaders who played a huge role. And there was another gentleman, Mr.
Okay, I said 3.
Yeah,
I
I
know
have
you
to
just
give
want
one
that.
more. One more.
Maybe 2 more.
It was my friend's dad. Listen to my friend's dad. During my time when my parents got divorced, it was a safe haven to go to the George's home. And Philip George was a wonderful man of God,
Amen.
who
Praise
just
the
loved
Lord.
us, argued with us. But we just wanted to be around him. And I think Philip George played a huge role in impacting my life as a young man.
That's amazing. Mr. Wes, thank you so much for, coming through on Grace Upon Grace. We truly appreciate you and the work that you do.
Yeah.
We stand here and we like so amazed, what God can be able to bring us, to help us journey this life. We want to appreciate you. And I mean, you've raised 3 beautiful babies that are out there making sure that what you and Nelda have come together and made sure that they are this big beacon of lights to everybody that is out there. So thank you for your contribution into the world at large,
It's been a pleasure being here, and thank you so much just for inviting me. And for the people who are listening out there, please check out Fathersmatter on the, just Google it and get more information.
Awesome.
All right.
Awesome. Sure. Thank you so much to everybody that has tuned in this evening, actually. Unyari Pariola says, "Hi, Musa. Thank you so much for this interesting conversation. I truly appreciate you. And Mr. Van Graan over there, hey, Jonga, making sure that you are making sure that we are knowledgeable. And yeah, we've got Umamutinka Jones says, thank you so much for this informative and very inspirational conversation of care and grace towards the fatherless generation. Thank you, Mama Tinka. I appreciate you. And we've also got May Pinto Sampson also listening in and saying
She's an old friend of mine.
you are a proud daddy. That's who you are. So yeah, that is the end of the show, actually.
We even got someone listening from Denmark.
Hey, hello Denmark.
Yeah,
hello
Thea.
Denmark.
Hi there, Thea.
Hi Thea. Thank you everybody for tuning in. My name is Musa Jakuja. Remember, wherever you are made out of an imperishable seed. So you have to blossom where God has planted you. Up until next time, God bless you. And we've got Stephen Zulumabalo, Governor. Hello. Say, I love you, Mr. Wes. Good night, everybody.